Matt, did you come back?
I am. I am. Can you see me?
No, I cannot. I can see a bush.
Ah. I am here.
Okay, turn your camera off and then turn it back on. There you are.
There I am.
Okay. So we've
That,
been chatting.
that bush is a 2,500-year-old tree, I'll have you know.
If I were that old, I'd have that kind of hairdo myself.
um, okay, so talking about sort of skillful responses uh, to making mistakes, to screwing up, to wrongdoing, both in ourselves and as parents.
Precisely.
And
So
then
that
it's so interesting, isn't it, the way the two things are so connected, because the way we behave with our children is it's like we're externalizing the way we behave with ourselves, aren't we? Like until we can kind of manage the way we behave with ourselves when we screw up, we're probably not going to do it with our children as well as we could.
you can go one step further with that, and we can cover the whole show by asking one question.
Mm.
You're a parent, right?
Hmm.
How did you learn to be a parent? Who was your teacher?
Yeah. Well, it was through how I was parented.
Precisely. Exactly. So we wind up behaving like our parents to our own children unless we wake up to that what we're doing is not appropriate just because that's what we're used to.
Mm. It's
That
funny.
in fact, this is exactly the way that dukkha is passed down.
Mm.
And when we understand it from that perspective, we can understand where the concept of original sin came from.
Mm.
It's the sin that's passed down from generation after generation. Bad behavior by the parent teaches the child bad behavior, and we can see that in a lot of different cultures. That's how almost every child in that culture is raised, and because of that, every generation after every generation after generation behave basically the same thing, and that actually gives them that cultural identity.
Mm.
But the behavior started way back when. And we can see it in individual items like violence. If a
Mm.
child is raised in a violent, let us say, household, then it's quite likely that he will be violent to children when he's an adult. Basically, whatever happened to the child happens to uh, the next generation of children under him. And we tend to perpetuate that, but we can wake up out of it. We can learn that, in fact, the whole quality of that is um, the basis of family therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there's a lot of issues with that, but one of them is that normally the larger the family, the more likely this is to happen. But in even in smaller families, the family itself will decide who is the problem child. One kid will be liked and the other one is not liked. Or two are liked and one of them is out. Or
Mm.
three is liked and one of them is out. But there's always just one scapegoat or one member of the family that's the black sheep of the family. This happens so often that it has been known about even in Bible times.
Mm.
But the psychologists see that, okay, and that it's natural, it's buried into our instinctual ways of doing things. Um, and we could also go so far as to look at it as a misinterpretation of what we would call a test case. That the society doesn't know what to do, and so they'll find somebody to experiment on. hoping that some value will come out of his experience, and that generally winds up being death in the old society. But in modern times, especially if the family gets into family therapy, is that the real therapist who really knows what he's doing is trying to get the parents to stop parenting the way that they were taught and
Mm,
to start parenting in a way that has more value to it. But
mm,
even then, many of the psychotherapists who know what they're doing will miss out on this issue of uh, the fear of punishment.
mm.
That's something that you've already told me just very, very little about, but that your daughter is in fact afraid of punishment.
Well, we don't really punish her as such. It's
But
more,
she's not afraid because she fears the repetition. She's afraid because of the next time it might happen. How bad can she get
well, the thing is,
before she is slapped? Is another quality that I was about to mention. But yes, it doesn't mean that she has been beaten and is afraid of being beaten. No, for in many cases for her, it's afraid that she will put herself down or start treating herself inside the way that she's treating her brother right now.
basically the difficulty is it's like it's seeing her, I suppose, like kind of a slightly like dark, harsher side of her character, because her and her brother normally get on extremely well. She's normally very, very loving to him. She's, you know, an amazing older sister. But since he's been in the cast and he is now a lot more helpless, needs a lot of attention, she's just being very harsh to him. And for some reason, it was just really, really grating for me. And I found that my response to it internally, it was really making me angry that she was behaving that way to him.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I really like what you're talking about in terms of making kind of reflecting her behavior back to her in a really playful, joyous way, because it
Mhm.
takes all of the, because the danger is, isn't it, that if you're kind of like, this is what you're doing to your brother right now, it's almost like you're building that up, and there's the danger that then that becomes internalized in her as, oh, I'm a mean person, right? Like this is what this,
Exactly.
the way my dad is reflecting this at me. It's like this is me.
Uh-huh. Exactly. So all of that stuff fits in together. The next side, which we haven't even discussed, is if you can begin to treat her with silliness and with joy and with aha, I caught you again, that will give him permission to start behaving in the same way. So that will help lift him out of being
Yes.
under her pressure. It will help him to say, aha, I see you, Mara.
Yeah. And perhaps see some of his own need for approval from her a little bit lighter, maybe.
Exactly
Yeah.
so. And so kids can wake up too. We don't have to suffer our way into adulthood before we
Yeah.
figure out.
Because probably part of the reason why that side comes out is because of the need from him. Like if the need from him was less, then the whole situation would be less kind of loaded, right?
Precisely so. That's what gives her power is his need. If he didn't need anything from her,
Mm,
then she would have no power over him.
mm,
Um, this is something that's inside of each one of us. This power, this dominance, is based upon delusional thinking or magical thinking. In fact, that I can, in fact, gain power for myself by taking it from someone else.
mm.
Okay, and so this is where we uh, use as a basis of foundation for what we would call dark side of personality or even evil.
Mm.
Basically, what we're saying is that I feel insecure in and of myself.
Mm.
Therefore, I need some power so I'll feel better. And the only place I know and the only way I know to get that power is by taking power over someone else.
Mm.
Okay, this is that, and it's so typical.
Mm.
I mean, from the White House down, snicker, snicker. um, we try to gain advantage.
Mm.
This is what a poker game is all about. This is what gambling or any kind of competition or any sports,
Mm.
and sports itself is nothing but flat out warfare
Mm.
with rules.
Mm.
And the rules are you can't take a knife or a gun out onto the football field.
Mm.
But other than that, they'll try to kill each other. Maybe
So
they can get away with it.
it's all, and these things are kind of part of the kind of instinctual makeup of humanity, and they come out in childhood, and then the question is, like, do you water those seeds?
Precisely. Or can you help the child to wake up to see what they're doing? But
Yeah.
in fact, most of the parenting they get with by keeping the child in the dark and feeding him mushrooms.
Yeah.
No, no, wait a minute, feeding him bullshit.
Very much so. See, because sometimes what I try to point out to her when she is in a kind of really when she's angry or whatever, I'll try and point out to her that, like, that I will say, drop it, because you're making yourself suffer right now by, like, holding on to all of
Yes,
this, like,
but you
anger.
see, she's seeing you as parent,
Yeah.
and so it's an us against them. What
Mm.
you have to do with this playfulness is to join her in childhood so
Mm.
that you're no longer that threatening adult in the room. You
Mm.
might, in fact, want to lay down on the floor when you tell her this. You could lay
Mm.
down on the floor, and when she sees you laying there, and that's when you print, aha, I see what you're doing.
Mm.
Okay, and because that'll really, because that lowering there, I mean, that height. Or you can squat down to talk to her or whisper in her ear.
Yeah. So I
But
do I do spend most of my parenting life rolling around on the floor. Normally being played
who said of anything about rolling?
normally being playfully beaten up by one or both of my children. This is mostly our favorite game. We call it playing rough and tough, and it just basically means, like, them jumping on me and playfully beating me up while laughing hysterically.
Okay, well,
But
that's
the thing is,
basically what you can do is invite her to do that right during that moment, rather than actually meaning being rough and tough with her brother.
yeah. So I basically what I'm saying, I it's like my default setting as a parent is this kind of, like, playful, light um interaction. But what happens is, like, there are certain kind of triggers which produce a kind of anger response in me, and that's
Right.
when, so the other day I actually mostly managed, I kind of just, like, left, I mostly managed to, like, abstain from reacting. But even in that, there's a kind of passive aggression there, isn't there? Like, if you're
Like grin and bear it.
sort of, yeah. So then
Mm-hmm.
what happened was that evening, I kind of really reflected on this, and I was just like, as we've discussed before, being a dukkha hound, just kind of really trying to, like, get to grips with, like, where is the suffering in my life, and realizing that this, like, angry response is a significant part of the suffering in my life.
Okay.
And that got me thinking about Brahma Vihara practice as a
Okay.
which I've never really done any of before.
Well, let's not go off over there. Let's go right after the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go directly to the situation, which is when that moment of the anger arises, you need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
The sooner the better, so that you can deal with your anger before you spread it around to anybody else.
Yeah.
Okay. In fact, that may be the secret of the situation with your daughter is that she's afraid of your anger. Because I bet when you get angry, you want her to know it. As if that's the punishment, is you've made dad angry now. He's hot. He's in hell. See what you've made him do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the point that you need to start teaching her is, ha ha, look at daddy. He jumped into hell.
Mm-hmm.
I know where his buttons are.
Mm. So what, it's like kind of being able to observe it in yourself and then playfully, I suppose it's having a like playful relation to the situation internally and then sharing that playful relation with her. Both
Yes.
when it's
Can
like,
you do that in the heat of the moment? The answer is yes, but you don't have to have the moment hot. You can cool it off first. You can cool off inside, take a deep breath, saying, aha, I see that anger. I'm not going to show it to her. I'm not even going to let one loud word out. This is how we begin to work on anger. And so you, congratulations, have a wonderful button pushing machine for you to be able to become mindful of. So your job now that we've had this conversation is to be careful on guard to make sure that you do not get angry and spread it when your daughter knows just where your buttons are. Because here's what's going to happen. And you can't blame her for this. This is the way that you've already set it up, so it's half your job anyway. If she pushes your button and you don't respond, she'll push it again. And if you don't get another response, she's going to keep pushing on that button until she gets what she's looking for from you, and you're not going to give it to her.
Or in fact, instead, I can give her a response, but the response needs to be
not the response she's been getting, and that is your anger. Your new response is, aha, I see you again. Now look what you're doing to me.
yeah.
You're trying to push my buttons, aren't you? Huh?
Yeah.
So this is what we basically is for you now. Your job is to wake up in the moment so that you can deal with her the way that you would have hoped that when you were being parented, that's the way that they had parented you instead of the way that they did.
Yeah.
Because you can't change the past, but you can change what's happening right now with her.
Yeah.
And recognizing that she expects your anger to be punishment enough. And so therefore, she still wants to avoid getting caught. When she recognizes that getting caught no longer has the punishment, but it does have the expectation of rehabilitation in it, then she'll take that rehabilitation route. So long as she's thinking that she might get away with it, then that's wrong view. Tam? Tam! Bow, bow, no way. Music has taken over.
So that
All
last
right.
bit was interesting as well. Because it's also saying to be very attentive and watchful, so that she doesn't kind of think that there are situations where she can get away with it. So it's kind of being very on top of it to make sure that that is not an impression that she gets, but to make sure that the response is a playful invitation for her to see what she's doing,
Exactly.
rather than disapproval.
Right, because in fact, if she can see what she's doing, she will either approve or disapprove of it on her own, and naturally, she will follow that. She doesn't approve of her own behavior once she sees what she's doing. That's very natural. That's why the Buddha's path is so powerful, is that we keep having to wake up and wake up and wake up and wake up every moment, so that in that new moment we can wake up and see what we're doing right then. And wow, now we're beginning to see what's going on. Naturally, we're going to change. We almost don't have to make a lot of effort in changing itself, but we have to have the quality of knowing that we can. And so it's just that right amount of effort, just the right amount of effort and the right attitude, and changing is easy. The hard part is waking up. And so in a way, yes, we're talking about how do you do anapanasati? How do you teach it to children? You just did. This is it. You wake up. You're helping her wake up. You're doing it joyfully. You're doing step 9 and step 10, bringing about satisfaction for her to see what's going on and wake up too. This is really just the same teaching done over and over and over and over again. Knowing that if you're angry at her, you're already asleep, and so is she.
More than asleep, you're in hell realm. Yeah.
Right. When you're angry, you're in hell.
Yeah. Okay. All right. This is very helpful, because it's like we've spoken about this a bit before. It's like applying the lessons learned in that kind of internal meditative process to the real world, and not only the real world, but those kind of like most difficult button pressing moments.
Exactly. And right now we know exactly who's there pressing those buttons. So that means that now we're making special attention to or a special kind of guarding. It's like being at the guard's gate, and you're just guarding and guarding, and then the officer comes by and says, "We've got a suspect and he has this description. Be on special lookout for this guy," right?
Yeah.
That description is your daughter. You be on lookout. Anytime that you're around her, you're going to be on guard. Anytime that because she's going to push your buttons.
Yeah.
And when her button pushing doesn't work, she's going to keep pushing. You can expect her to do that. And she's going to push her brother's buttons. So we need to teach him how to deal with his buttons getting pushed too.
Yeah. Okay. So the left to my own devices, I thought about this in a slightly different way.
Okay.
Which was the idea of like anger, kind of like the antidote to anger is love. And when you are in a state of kind of loving kindness, and when that is something that you are able to
and then she pushes your button, and what happens?
Yeah, it needs to come with sati and with that aha, I see you quality. But basically my question, the kind of question or the thinking that I went through 2 nights ago,
already love your daughter.
I know,
no question about that.
The point I'm trying to get at is
if you didn't love her, she couldn't push your buttons.
if I have noticed that anger is a kind of part of where my suffering is, and the last thing I want to do is put my suffering on anybody else. Like, I take full responsibility for any suffering that arises here, and I don't want to share it with anybody. And I want to, you know, and I think all parents feel that way. They don't want to pass on the bullshit that they had to their children. They want
Yet
that,
somehow they're doomed to
but
it,
somehow they're doomed to.
because they don't know any other way of doing it.
Yes, but we have a more optimistic sense of one's ability to rewrite that code, right?
Exactly.
And that's what
If
the
we can
Dhamma
wake up to what
teaches.
we're doing, we can change it. If we don't wake up, we don't change.
Yeah. But my point, so the cycle that you just described, that will be my practice with her. And I like that idea of just being really on guard, and also just having that awareness of being like, right, so I've noticed that anger takes me to a place of suffering. So be incredibly on guard with the anger. And I've noticed that Willow can push those buttons that get me there. So I'm going to be really kind of aware of that. But the way was thinking about it a few days ago, and I just is the idea that, like, an antidote to that anger in a more kind of general sense is that, like, that quality of loving kindness. So why not kind of go about cultivating that in a slightly more deliberate way?
The answer is it doesn't matter how deliberate you are with it. You already have more loving kindness than she deserves right now.
Yeah.
Because you give her the loving kindness that not every child will get from any adult off the street. She has the loving kindness from her father, a very devoted, loving father. I don't think that's the issue.
No,
You
my
have a
point
lot
isn't
of.
that I'm a very loving father. We have a very loving relationship. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, so
Great.
I
In the
don't.
moment of anger, though, in the moment of anger,
Where's that loving kindness?
yeah, because it can't coexist. They are mutually exclusive qualities.
Okay, well, how can you push the anger out with loving kindness if you are not aware that in that instant that that anger is arising?
Yes, that waking up and that sati is the key thing. I completely get that. I'm certainly not disagreeing with you there.
That you cannot sit there on the floor and say, "May all beings be happy" for 4 hours and expect her not to push your buttons after that. So let's move along. Also, because there is metta, then there is karuna and mudita.
Yeah,
Stopping by just a moment on the karuna, that
yeah,
you already have compassion for her also, that you seek her best welfare. That's what we've
yeah.
been talking about from the beginning on this conversation. Let's not need that so much. Let's look, though, at mudita. Where's your freaking mudita?
Yeah. So that
Okay,
getting down
the
on the
answer
floor
is
and
you start confronting her bad behavior with your joy,
yes.
which means that you've already got to have the anger that comes up from her pushing your buttons. So that's the first thing. And once you get the anger out of your own mind, now you've got the joy so that you can meet her at that level of mudita, that you can actually play with her while you're taking the mickey out of her.
Yeah.
I caught you. Because she does need to look at what she's actually doing, but there's no reason for her to feel bad or feel punishment
Yeah.
for the requirement. In fact, that will prevent her from ever wanting to do any self-discovery because she's not going to like what she finds. She's already determined that point of view in advance.
Yeah.
Okay, but you've got a marvelous opportunity to turn her into a Dhamma dude before she even knows what the term means.
Yeah.
By changing your anger into sympathetic joy. But you got to have some sympathy so that you can boogie with it.
Yeah.
If you can't boogie with joy, how do you expect her to boogie with joy back at you? Here I'm using the word boogie. In fact, what we're talking about sympathetic vibration. Boogie matches boogie. The note A matches the A. Anger matches anger.
Yeah.
All right. So we share each other. That's what mudita is all about. It's a very powerful teaching. Very powerful teaching to know that the one who's the wakest, the one who's the most awake in the group is the one who can control the mood or the feelings of the group.
And isn't the idea that there's like a sequence to them, so that the awake kind of like energy and vibe is then picked up on and shared in a joyful way, and that's mudita, and that kind of comes that would come from compassion, which kind of comes from a more general feeling of friendliness and kindness to experience.
Now that's also an important point that I meant to mention a while ago, and that is that you have buttons that only she can push.
Yeah.
And I mean that in the sense of the special relationship that you have with her, that this is your daughter. When you stop seeing her as your daughter and start seeing her as a marvelous friend, then she won't be able to touch your buttons so easily. Stop treating her like she's your daughter and give her what I'm assuming she's something between 7 and 12.
She's 7, but she's
That's
7 going on 12.
Okay. All right. So she's old enough to know that she's old enough,
Yeah.
but she's not wise enough to recognize that she's not old enough. So you got to give her credit for that. She knows that she's old enough. So, okay, start treating her like she's old enough to understand that you can see what she's doing. And you don't have to lie to her or dance around it or anything. You can just pull it right out in front of her. I caught you. Because one of the games that I know that kids play at that level is the game of I can get away with it. I can mistreat my brother and only he will know. And that's magical thinking. We know it. You and I already know it's magical thinking because we're talking about it. So we already know that but she still has the magical thinking that only she and he know that. If she knew everybody in the household knew it, she'd be really ashamed of doing it, all on her own. So she'll punish herself, but you don't have to. You don't have to be angry at her. You can be very teasing, very playful, but do it often every time you catch her at it. And she'll keep doing it as long as he's got that cast on. And then I'd love to hear what happens next after that. Payback time.
No, he doesn't have it in him. He's very gentle with her. I mean, it's also kind of a thing of like the fact that they've had very little contact, because obviously with the lockdown and quarantine thing, they've been very...
Yeah, before they were in different grades, and so they didn't spend all day with each other. Is that right?
Yeah, and
now they're in the same house where they're in each other's lap all day long.
Yeah. And that it's been an amazing blessing throughout the whole thing. I've thought often, like, thank goodness they're not only children, the fact that they've had each other to play with. And he's speaking a lot more eloquently, and I think it's because Yeah, like their influence, like she's taught him how to play in the way that she wants to play, and he's kind of caught up a lot. Do you know what I mean? Like it's been amazing the way that they've
But
supported each
now that he's broken his leg, by the way, how long has it been broken?
a week.
Okay, so he's got at least another 5, huh?
No,
So the cast like that,
2 weeks of a cast. They think the cast will be on for 3 weeks altogether.
and then they're going to put another cast on, but a smaller one.
I think the hard cast is just for 3 weeks, and then
Wow, they normally, well, modern medicine, but generally in the old days, if they put a full leg cast all the way up to your hip or further, uh, then that generally means that they want to stabilize the whole thing. Because whatever bone is broken is generally only one bone somewhere in there. But
yeah,
stabilizing the whole thing means that it's a delicate situation, and it's normally designed to keep the child off of that leg altogether.
he is
No
off
going.
of it. He's not putting any weight on it. He doesn't have crutches or anything. He's only
That's
3.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Those kind of casts are to keep the kid off that leg.
Yeah, no, he's just like bum
You do not
shuffling
go to
around
the
the place.
marching band contest when you got a cat like that.
Yeah.
I know, I've been there, done that. So, well, congratulations if he only has to wear it for 3 weeks, but
Yeah.
it'll come off. He'll be back, and they will settle back into whatever it was that they had before. But for right now, you have a golden opportunity to
Yes.
manage your anger and to help her to come out of her power tripping.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
You want to take her out of that power tripping, because that power tripping, if she could possibly go off in the direction of being the town bully. Every high school's got one, a female, and at least 2 male
Oh,
bullies.
yeah. No, she couldn't. She's very like sensitive and loving with her friends. And also like she's quite a phenomenal 7-year-old, to be honest. She's quite a phenomenal person. I'm kind of in
Yes,
awe
I've
of
seen
her.
her. She's been
What?
on here. I've seen her, and
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that about your daughter. I'm suggesting that bullyhood grows from that sense of taking power over other people when the kids are younger. If she got away with being overpowering, for instance, after he's out of the cast and she continues to act like she's taking power over him, that's when we need to continue really laughing at her and catching her to see if we can get her out of that.
But I suppose like that feeling that she's got of being angry and feeling like there's not enough attention, and that's why she's annoyed at Sydney, because she feels like he's getting all the attention.
Mm-hmm.
Like if she is just like bathed in love, if there's like a special like intention to kind of like make her like feel attention in the form of parental love, then that should also
Any kind. I would say you can do it playfully, and you can do it from the sense of parenthood, in
yeah,
the sense of I'll always take care of you.
yeah,
I couldn't do without you.
yeah,
I
because
never met a kid as wonderful as you. I
yeah,
would avoid comparisons like you're the best.
no, yeah, we're very careful not to do stuff like that, but we decided that it would be good to like schedule, like make sure that she has a bit of like one-on-one time with her mum and one-on-one time with me, so that
Yes.
she kind of
And
gets
even
that.
some one-on-one time with both of you,
Yeah.
just the three of you without the brother.
Yeah. We do that. So we often, the three of us will have a hug, and we'll say original three to try and kind of give her that I don't know.
Yes, exactly. Because
Yeah.
that will feed and nourish that part of her, of the fear of separation, loneliness. Every child has that, and when they have it in big time, they call it an abandonment issue, and it can get really severe in the sense that the girl who has the abandonment issue will begin to start being angry at her husband just before it's time for him to go to work. And he doesn't understand what's going on. Really, what's going on is she wants to keep him there because she would rather be angry with him having him there than feeling abandoned after he leaves. Okay, now these feelings that we're talking about with this kind of severe behavior can be there without people being even aware of it. That sometimes it's hard to say goodbye. And so we can, anytime it is really hard to say goodbye, we can bring that back to that feeling of abandonment. Oh, I'll be less off when you go. So I want to keep you here. But with a child like that, you want to say, yes, you can stay. I'm not pushing you away. Yes, you belong here. This is your home. Please feel secure and safe and comfortable and happy in this family. As opposed to the kind of things that a lot of kids hear, which is more like, you do what you're told to do or you're out of here. Because you don't want to say that to them at all. You want to be able to tell them, no, you're welcome. This is your home. I may not like what you're doing, but if I catch you doing something I don't like, I'm going to tease you about it.
Rather than show disapproval, and the implication of disapproval is what you just verbalized, right? Even if that's not on anyone's not said, it's
not said, but it's that fear. It's that basic fear of disapproval and being abandoned because daddy's angry. So she doesn't want to admit wrongdoing. But when she finds out daddy's not going to abandon me, he's going to tease me. Then she'll want not. Then instead of not wanting to get caught doing it, she'll get to the point of not wanting to do it at all, and there's a completely different position to be in.
Okay. Well, I've got a very interesting day of practice ahead of me then.
Excellent. Enjoy.
Thank you.
This about time for them to start putting labels on it, such as stir crazy or cabin fever. So that kind of thing. There's some antsiness in the air, and and so that antsiness is how she's behaving with it. So there's also that quality to it.
Although it's actually I'm teaching full time again from Monday, because they're opening schools in England to it's like some year groups. They're kind of slowly starting to.
Is she going back to school?
So her year group's not one of the ones that is, but because I'm going back, I need to be in school full time. She's always been able to go back to school because I'm a key worker, but because I have been having to be in school 5 days a week, we decided to not have her take that place, to not put pressure on the system, and also to kind of limit her exposure, I suppose, as well. But now that I'm going back full time, and also now that, I mean, to be honest, the virus has actually been through our family. Her mum had it. Like, we're almost certain that she and her brother, they were sleeping in a bed with her mum the day before her mum came down with the fever and the cough. So it's extremely unlikely.
How's your dad doing?
Oh, oh my God, it's amazing. Amazing. The speed and fullness of his recovery has been amazing. And he's in a really good place. Like, you know, nothing like nearly dying to make you appreciate life.
I know.
Yeah. So yeah, he's good. But anyway, so she's going to be going back 3 days a week to school from Monday.
Oh, I bet she'll be glad to do that.
Yeah. And now it's starting to ease as well, like general restrictions so that children can have play dates with each other and things like that. So it's starting to ease now for now.
That's what's happening at the house right now. There's four kids in the house
Yeah.
at this moment, as you can hear, as well as a party downstairs. So there
Oh, nice.
must be 15 people in the house right now.
Cool.
So anyway, I'm glad to hear that you've got a project, a plan.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear what happens with it
Okay.
when you catch anger.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't take very long. You can come awake to it and be determined to be finished with it, and it doesn't take very long to do that.
Is that determination needs to be there, right? It needs to be like
Absolutely,
really,
but you've got a very strong reason. You've got your daughter.
Yeah.
That should be reason enough for you to be determined to get rid of this anger.
Yeah.
Now that you see it, and you see how destructive it is, especially for her.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. Thank you very much. I think this has been really important and helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell me all about it. We'll see you later.
Okay, go well. Bye-bye.